Welcome to another episode of Hutch on Hunting. And it's really fun to have Chip Hunnicutt on the show, and he's going to mention the company he's working for now. But I met Chip at an ATA show when something produced by Crossman came out, and it really took the outdoor industry on its ear, or actually put it on its ear. And Chip's going to tell some stories about that. But hey, Chip, it's really great to reconnect with you today on Hutch and Hunting podcast. And, I look forward to the discussion we're going to have. We got some notes about what we're going to talk about, but as other things come up, we'll talk about them. So, Chip, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been a minute since those Crosman days. Um, that was a once in a lifetime experience with that particular product launch. But we've got a lot of exciting things happening these days. We've kind of come a long way, but it sure is good to see you again. Happy to catch up.
Well, it's just a pleasure. And that's one thing, listeners, that if you're not involved in the outdoor industry, you really find that it's worth a lot of money. There's billions of dollars into it, but it's a really small family. Um, it's close connections. And the people you meet, Chip and I don't know, that was 8 years ago, whatever, we first met, but you're still connected. And that's one thing great about the outdoor industry, I think. What's your comments? What's your take on that?
I think so too. The outdoor industry is my family, and our family reunion is typically SHOT Show. And that's where I get to catch up with just about everybody. I've been going there for 14 years now, minus the COVID year. Um, but it's real special. My dad used to talk about deals being done on the golf course or the tennis court. I was never very good at either of those, but there's nothing quite like coming together around a campfire or in hunt camp, and it's just real special, and you get to see and learn things about people that I don't think you're going to learn about them on a golf course. And our industry is um it is very small, compared to other industries, um but you can certainly have a worthwhile career in it. If you do well, you're going to get a lot of attention. It's happened in my case. For a long time, it's just been me and a dog. So if someone came calling and had an interesting opportunity, um, I could pursue it. I've turned moving into a science, but I've kind of gotten tired of that in recent years. I like being settled down.
Now, you look at your history and you look at your resume, your outdoor resume. How did you decide? You just mentioned it, somebody came calling. So how did that happen?
So I was working as a marketing director for a real estate company in North Carolina, and I had hired a creative agency to help build some ads, an ad agency. As a real estate market began to crater, I left that company and partnered with that agency to start a new agency. And about that time was when the iPhone came out. And I had gone on my first elk hunt. And I remember on that hunt, somebody had asked, what did it score? And I didn't know what they were talking about, but I quickly learned what that meant. And they realized, with this iPhone thing, I can create an app for scoring game animals. So I did that. I hired a developer to do the coding, but it's certainly my vision. And I got permission from SCI and Boone and Crockett and what have you, Pope and Young, to use their official methods. And so that put me on the radar. So when I saw an opportunity for a position with Crosman Corporation in New York, of course, I'm living in Wilmington, North Carolina at the time, that showed that I had a little bit of background in what I was talking about, because they were looking for someone who hunted, someone who knew marketing, and someone had a little bit of a tech Jones. And so I fit that bill and moved up to New York State, up outside Rochester. And from that moment, I never said no to anything. I said yes to every project. And if I didn't know everything there was about that project, I would bust my hump to figure it out. Um, People want doers. If you're not a doer, then you're just going to maybe not be doing it very long. So um, I said yes, and I was doing things that weren't always the most fun things, but I was getting results, and I got handed more and more responsibility. And then this project came along that was actually Jim Shockey's concept, that it could just shoot an arrow out of an air rifle, came along, and we had a person, a vice president of marketing, who'd never hunted before in their life, really didn't know what this thing was all about. So here, Chip, you go handle the launch. So I got a phone call one day from I think it was Eva, who was out in Texas with Jim, saying, "Hey, we got this arrow shooting air rifle. What do you want us to shoot with it?" I said, "It's got to be something that is sporting, that is bigger. It cannot be a pig. It cannot be a coyote. We'd already done that with a 25 caliber rifle. I said, it's got to be something significant." So, um, about a week later, or so they sent me the raw footage. He had killed a bison and just hammered it. But Jim's reaction to this was absolutely genuine. I've gotten to know him, fairly well. I call him a friend for sure, but the his reaction on camera was absolutely genuine. His surprise, his confidence, um, his excitement to revealing this product to the world was evident. So I worked on, I edited the video, and we launched the video and that product. Our Mark Hedberg was our coder and really the guy behind building the website vision, and made a beautiful website for us. And we launched this thing on the first morning of ATA, opening day of ATA.
What year was
And
that?
that was, I think it was about 2014 or 15, right in there.
It probably was 15. That's what I'm
It was-
thinking.
yeah. So we had asked Shockey to be in the booth. It was launched under Benjamin, which was a Crosman brand. Benjamin was kind of reserved for our premium hunting products. I was standing next to him when his phone rang, and he told me that it was a head of Outdoor Sportsman Group had just watched the video of him killing a buffalo with this thing, just in awe, like, what is happening? And none of us quite knew what was happening, but it wound up being two things happened from that. It was the most successful launch in Crosman's history, and I became the most hated person in America among bow hunters, because there was no season for this thing. Nobody knew what season do you put an air bow in. Um, I wasn't a super fan of the name, because it was not a bow, but the VP of marketing, who didn't know anything about hunting, insisted on it. And, I got overruled. But indeed, as I predicted, it presented a significant problem, and it probably prevented us from getting approval in a bow season in Maryland, and which sucked, because a lot of the country paid a lot of attention to what Maryland did, because their grassroots bow hunting group is so powerful up there. So at any rate, I wound up flying around the country doing demos of our 357, our 25, and the Cal and the airboat with all these agencies trying to get it approved. Tony Martins, outdoor writer down in Arizona, he was a tremendous help in getting it approved, and the air rifles in Arizona. And it took some time, but it eventually wound up being put into firearm seasons. I remember I rigged up an alligator rig for it. I had applied for points down in South Carolina for about 4 years, and I was willing, once I finally got my tag, I was going to use an airbow for it. And I talked to guy in Wisconsin about, Sam Wood about doing an alligator rig for it, but it wound up being really freaking heavy. And so that thing would just badunk, it would just dunk maybe 10 or 12 yards beyond the muzzle of the airbow. But really, if you got an alligator next to you, you don't need to go that far anyway. So I showed up in South Carolina with this thing, had full approval of wildlife department, but then the local guy who ran the area decided at the last minute he didn't want his name attached to it. So when I showed up, they said no. So it didn't happen, but I still have all the freaking hooks and barbs and fishing line and buoys and everything. But at any rate, that was a really fun project. And it definitely put air guns on the map and really kind of set the stage where a lot of where Crosman and Benjamin and all these other companies like Umarex and what have you have come in and kind of continued that forward progress.
Yeah, and that's going to be exciting to take, something from a vision, to an actual product and move it along. And how many companies have you done that with in your career?
Well, I mean, with Crosman, we also had the Rogue 357, which was the first 357 air rifle that Crosman put out. It was prior to the airbow, and Ed Schultz, the director of engineering, and we flew out to Texas because again, we needed to prove what this thing could do, and so we went out there and they said, yeah, you can shoot a javelina with this thing. And we show up and the local fella, because we could find no confirmation of this. He said, no, absolutely not. Yeah, javelinas are protected. You can't shoot them with anything, with a freaking air rifle. It's not because air rifles were not allowed. At that time, Texas had no laws about air rifles. So it was more of caution more than an explicit no, they're unallowed. So we wound up whacking coyotes and jackrabbits and whatnot. It didn't have quite the same oomph as I had hoped. So that's why, we fast forwarded to the airbow. I made sure that Jim was shooting something that was with an airbow that was going to make an impact, and it certainly did. But yeah, so we had some good fortune there. I went down to after Crosman, I went down to Arcus Hunting, which had 6 brands at the time, and then we acquired one more, so 7 total. But Arcus was a parent company of like Tinks and Dead Downwind. And at the time, it was Obsession Bows and Ramcat Broadheads and Trophy Taker. And then we bought Rack One from the Kiefer brothers while I was there. But they had just bought Obsession. And of course, Arcus was owned by an equity group out of New York City, which again had a parent company based in Europe. And that European group said, okay, New York City, you can invest in the hunting industry, but just no guns. So everything Arcus was doing was archery related. So they bought a bow company, Obsession Bows. And that is a difficult niche to get into. You've only got a handful of players. And so you've got to do something different to stand out. Just like we did with the airbow at Crosman. You got to knock down something big to stand out. Well, Obsession, we wanted to do something big. So I brought in an agency to help me do that. And the idea was, what does obsession mean? And, wouldn't it be great if shopping for food was as much fun as hunting it? And so that's the idea we went with. Wouldn't shopping for food be as much fun as hunting it? And we produce a TV spot of a guy out in the woods shooting pizza boxes, but they were grunting like a bear, and it was like bear pizza on the box. Then he shot a box of Doritos. It was a custom produced Cheerios box, but it said Derios on it. And then he shot a jug of pork rinds that was snorting like a pig that was coming after him. And then, of course, at the end, he's got a boring looking a little girl looking like she's working at a home improvement store saying, you want paper or plastic, but the his food's got an arrow sticking out of it. The spot is on YouTube, and it really put Obsession on the map. It was so different and entertaining and memorable. And that's that's when the light bulb started going off. You really got to stand out. It's not unlike any other industry. You've got to stand out. If you're not noticed, it doesn't matter what you do.
That's
So,
right.
it was Obsession never really took off like a Hoyt or Matthews. They had too many other headwinds, but the awareness was certainly there. And then from Marcus, I went down to South Florida, worked with Century Arms for a while. We did some good things with Canic pistols, which they were the importer for. But I wasn't there very, very long. It was Century is hardcore tactical, and I had an opportunity to get back into the hunting space with Safari Club International. And SEI was a hot mess. It's a wonderful organization, but all its members are alphas. I mean, these are all people who have created or run their own businesses, and you put them all in a room and nobody can take charge because everybody wants to be in charge. And they brought in a new CEO, and he and I got along very well. He and I kind of recognized that we each have visions, and our visions dovetailed very nicely. And I liked what he was doing, and he liked that I had some connections and some insight into the outdoor industry itself, because SCI really hadn't tapped into the outdoor industry. So that relationship, that was with Laird Hamberlin when he came in to SCI. That relationship was fantastic. I brought him Buckmasters, and I gave him some very good advisement on Texas trophy hunters, and it was great. The things that I was doing, trying to get the interest of corporate partners and licensees, wound up having the most successful period of growth in that organization's 50-year history. And again, we're trying to bring in members, and SCI, God bless their work, but nobody really understands what they do. They know NRA is for guns. They know Mule Deer Foundation is mule deer. Rocky Mountain Elk is for elk. But SCI, I mean, when you start the organization name off with the word safari, it's just images of Africa, and they all know it, but nobody's got the stones to change it. So, and I get that. I mean, there's a lot of history there, but again, they just didn't want to do it. Well, so I was stuck with it. So I had to do something different to get the attention of potential members. And so again, I went back to an agency for some assistance because I had some ideas, and we got to think, what really happens when somebody joins SCI? All you get, you'll get a cheap bumper sticker, you'll get a little pin or something, you'll get an invitation to a convention that you again have to pay more money to get in. But the one thing you really do that's really cool is that you get to piss off an anti-hunting person. And we latched onto that idea, and it went freaking gangbusters. We made a 30-second spot. I remember the agency owner talking about, he went to a place down, I think it was near I want to say Arkansas, Texas border. There's a small town, just kind of picturesque, but it produced this 30-second spot of just all these anti-hunting protesters just getting angry because people were joining SCI. And that was the campaign, join SCI and, upset an anti-hunter. And it was great and it was different. And I'll tell you, the insiders didn't like it. They didn't want to ruffle feathers. Well, when you've got antis who are trying to end your passion, I don't give a rip about ruffling feathers. I need us to get noticed so people join us and go to the convention where you get almost 90% of your revenue. Well, you've got to do something. And so this was a big, bold idea. And I think we ran that spot one time and somebody got really pissed off and didn't like it. And we had to pull it. So when you piss off a donor at an organization that's hurting for large money donors, that's what happens. But it created some huge ripples in the industry, and had they stuck with it, they would have done very well. I think they would have had more members than they have now. But at any rate, they're doing well because part of the plan that Laird and I have going through COVID was not to take the foot off the gas. Every other organization was letting up, and he and I agreed. And he point blank asked me about reducing the marketing expense, and I said, "Well, I'd rather you give me a number than tell me which part to cut out." And if you ask me what number it ought to be nothing. I think you ought to do it. Everybody else is going to look weak by pulling back. You need to look strong, and they did it for a while. So that was a big time. And then my last stop was here in North Carolina at Wooks. It was the brainchild of a family member of Manelli Group over in Italy. And they do Henry's stocks and they do some other stocks for some other manufacturers. But one of these family members had an idea for a modular gun stock. And so he added some cutlery to that too to kind of round out the offerings. And so they wanted a marketing person. And when you're building approach, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. And as inexpensive as social media seems, social media serves a very particular purpose, and it's not the purpose that a brand new brand needs. But it's very easy to get hooked on the dopamine fix whenever you get a like. And there's a little bit of frustration there as this young CEO was getting addicted to the dopamine and not the dollars. So I would show them the data about, where we were actually seeing some growth, and trying to keep the plan on track. The result of my plan was the most successful launch in their 4-year existence. In fact, they sold out of the Gladiator shotgun furniture in, I think it was like 6 weeks, and they didn't have any more for 9 months. And then they sold out of their number one rifle stock, the Furiosa, and we're going to have any more of those in 6 months. And so basically, they decided to close up shop and move marketing over to Italy because I was outselling production. And so I guess they need.
Jeez.
So
It's
there's
not less.
that.
You did a really great job, but now you're fired.
That's kind of the other side of it. You want to do great, but then you kind of run out of stuff to sell. But looking back, so where I am now, the agency that I used at Arcus Hunting for Obsession Bows, the agency I used with SCI, and the agency I used at Wooks, I'd also sent them some referral business, Ballistall USA. And they've done some other business like Streamlight, Thousand Piers Gin, and BMW. They extended an invitation to me in the fall of last year to come on board. And I just kind of, I didn't jump at it. I had some other irons in the fire. And then after getting through the holidays and putting some more thought into it, I came to them and said, I think I would like to do this. So helping them open an outdoor division. and the company's name is Immortology.
Say
And
that one more time because I was
you were having a
tripping
time.
over it.
So there are two kinds of brands. There's mortal and there's immortal. And so our agency's name is Immortology because we're a mortal brand, kind of focuses on, what's fleeting and faddish. And they subsist on the tactical and the temporary and sacrifice long-term success for momentary gain. You got the immortal brands that focus on long-term and the lasting, the permanent and the perpetual. And so that's kind of what we're all about, is building integrative, creative campaigns for long-term brand growth. And I am super excited, um, and I guess that's how I wound up on your radar, Bruce. You're just kind of checking in and see what I was doing, and saw this company
Oh
was doing.
yeah, you just popped up, and I got a pretty strong Rolodex for spending the years I have in the outdoor industry. And I said, Chip Hunnicutt, how do I know that? And I was spinning it up, and I got a hold of Dave Smith, I guess.
Yeah,
I got a hold of Dave. He said, you got to talk to Chip. And I said, okay, fine. And I said, this is going to be fun. And well, like we said at the top of the show, it's a small community, folks. It really is. And it is a family. So to catch up with somebody you went to college with 15 years ago and say, what the heck's going on? And then yes, we are going to talk about some issues that are facing the outdoor industry. And we're going to talk about that. But it's just fun to have these long-term relationships. And I'm working on a book right now called RROR, Return on Relationships. And this is a
that's
perfect example of that.
that's a great title. And it's true. It's uh, like I said, I've had this long relationship with an agency, and it's not. I mean, there were never any backroom deals. I was sending out, RFPs whenever I had a campaign, a request for a proposal from different agencies. But every single time, the David Smith and the agency that he created just came back and were just stupid brilliant. But you got to understand who David is. This isn't his first rodeo. This guy is highly decorated. He has been in charge of some of history's most famous campaigns. If you remember the Lipton Brisk tea with a little claymation, Bruce Willis, it's Brisk Baby, that's David. If Smirnoff Ice, he launched that beverage, and it was the most successful in their history. Now, for this audience, your audience, Bruce, they may remember an old video of Triumph boats where this good old boy got upset with his girlfriend or his wife, and he hung a Triumph boat from a crane and then swung it and started smashing his girlfriend's trailer with it. And people went nuts because they thought it was real. Well, this was David's idea. It was a viral video that went insanely viral to the point where Inside Edition had to do an interview with him to make sure this was a real deal. It was unbelievable for Triumph. So the guy is brilliant. And he's worked for some big names, and he's worked around the world. And I feel very fortunate to have connected with him and had success. I'm really excited about what we're going to be able to do in the outdoor industry.
Yeah. And it's just, getting back to return on relationships, you built your strong resume. You had to produce, and you said it early on. You never said no. You got off your butt and got it done, whatever that looked like, whatever you had to do. That's just how you did it. And so if you're starting off, just listening to the show and just starting off, pay the price. And that's what I did my whole life, leaving home at 17, going to college, playing football, and then going to work, getting married, raising kids, and hunting all over North America because I wanted to. But I just realized I had to do 60 hours, 80 hours a week working for the company I work for. That's what it took. But I was always near the top. I always made good money and I always enjoyed it. And I always helped other people achieve their goals. So what's
Yeah,
wrong with that?
it's been very rewarding. You know, in those early days when I was saying yes to everything that came across. I mean, I was in the truck with a events guy at Crosman driving from New York to Kansas for like a Boy Scout shooting event, and they just wanted a shooting range there. And so I was living off Mountain Dew and beef jerky driving across the country. But when I'd get there, I was taking pictures, doing videos, and posting them to social media. And all of a sudden, back at the home office, they're saying, God darn, look what Hunnicutt's posted online. And I'll tell you, Bruce, to this day, I'll be walking around SHOT or some of these other consumer events, and somebody will come up and they'll recognize me. And that's fine and well, but that's just a testament to the volume of stuff we were putting out. And since I was filming it, that's what it was. But we were doing crazy videos back then. There's a good one of Crosman where it's for the Woods Walker pistol. You know, we talked about it's being good on squirrels. You keep it in your tree stand when you're deer hunting because it's so quiet. And you're looking up at me, and I'm in a tree stand, and all of a sudden I jump out of the tree stand, and the stand's only 2 feet off the ground, and then it just goes off from there. It's so funny, but that's the thing that works and that David gets with Immortology, that humor is a vital component for getting that attention to make for a successful campaign. And we did some things at Wooks. We launched that shotgun furniture when I said that we sold out in 6 weeks. We did a print ad for that saying the last time a shotgun got this much attention, Cheney was behind the trigger.
Oh no.
And that's exactly. So let me tell you, I submitted this to, no, I talked to Mike Scobie down at Field Ethos. So look, I want to run some ads in Field Ethos magazine. He says, well, it's got to be good. You know, we keep sending back ads from these other companies because they just can't come up with a good ad. I said, well, let me send you one and see what you think. And I sent him that Cheney ad, no questions. It ran immediately. They they ate it up. And so that's the kind of stuff that people remember.
Well,
And
yeah.
that's what you build a brand on. Um, if you just go out and buy an influencer, what you're doing is you're building that influencer's brand. You're not building yours. And so you got to focus on your own stuff and ignore the trivial and transient stuff and pursue a higher purpose. And that's what we're doing at Immortology.
That's a great segue because in the warm up, we talked about how social influencers maybe aren't our best friend in the hunting industry because they post something and people say, oh man, where'd you get that? And they go, well, I got it in West Fork, Middle Creek,
Yeah.
Colorado, whatever. You know, it's a darn fine deer, elk, antelope, you name it. And all of a sudden, it's out there. And I
It's
remember talking to Jim Zumbo many, many years ago before Unit 2 in Colorado took 21 points to get
yeah,
drawn a tag. 21 points. And I hunted that in 80s, archery hunting. And it was wonderful because I worked for the rancher and mended fence, gathered, I did everything, made hay, you know, and I was a good neighbor. And that's a secret. I'm just going to throw this out. Even today, if you're a good neighbor and want to find a hunting spot, be a good neighbor. Show up, case of beer, pies, and just say, hey, I like to bring my kids over, or I'd like to come over. And if you can put me up, I'll give you a couple of days and do that. And Boyd and
yeah,
Wander, they couldn't believe that some guy would do this. And I had to drive 5 hours to get there, but they put me in the bunkhouse and I'd go, you know, stack hay or drive the tractor to make the windrows and just be a good hand. And I could go any place I wanted on that ranch when I drew a tag.
Yeah. It's, I remember way back in my early days when, when people were still trying to figure this stuff out. And I'm not that old, but the internet's just still very young. These TV guys were trying to figure it out. And so what they were doing is like, hey, you buy a bunch of 30-second spots, we'll throw in social media for free. I think I was one of the first to start wanting to buy their social, and you throw in the TV part for free. I was flipping it on them, and it was working out pretty well. But you've got these folks who've been in TV a long time, like Shockey or Gus Conjimi, that those kind of folks, or Dave Poteet, who understand what what it means to be responsible on behalf of hunting as a passion, but also these manufacturers. They've been doing it for a long time. They've kind of got evolved as a hunter, and they understand, and they take care when they represent a brand. Even if they change brands, they understand and they take care. But you contrast that with these influencers, who most of which don't have a very long history as a hunter. Um, they don't even look like they know what they're doing or know how to call anything, but they just don't have the same regard for the pursuit. And it comes through in their representation of the brands. And it's not a good look for the brands. You've got some that just about all these influencers, they have low production value. Um, and there's some that are trying, but what has happened, these manufacturers want access to those large audiences that some of these influencers have. I get that. I'm okay with that, but there are different ways to get to that audience than the way they're doing it now. And I'm not going to tell you, because then you'll get it for free. So you have to come to immortologyusa.com and contact us. But it can be done. I know exactly how to do it. It's no different than buying ad inventory on your podcast or on radio or whatnot. But there is a method to the madness, and the key is getting the influencer out of the production of it and doing it yourself. Because they mess up talking points, they say things they shouldn't, they their next video after they do something for you just might get them banned from something, but now it's going to reflect on what they just did for you the week prior. So again, there are ways to get around that, and that's one of the offerings that we have at Immortology as part of prepackaged campaigns that we do. But just, these influencers in general, I know a lot of them. They're good people. They're not all crappy, but they are a hot topic because they're bringing attention to places that haven't. I mean, may have had attention, but not the volume of attention. I just saw a post this morning. Someone brought to light about a guy will go turkey hunting someplace and then tell all his followers. All the followers go to that state, and now the state is having to reduce tags for residents because they've been hammered by these non-residents coming in. Or a state will actually sell a hard-sided tag or license so they can turn around and pay for an advertising campaign using these influencers. And again, it's hurting population numbers. So there's a real balance there that's really out of balance. But the thing about influencers are they're just one of these short-term tools that brands who aren't serious about long-term growth are using. And it's they should be part of any company's marketing mix, but not to the level you think. So that, I don't know. What do you think, Bruce?
I think it's overdone. I think there's people influencing in the hunting industry that don't know what they're talking about. We have right now a huge fight in Colorado because they're trying to ban mountain lions and bobcats
Yep.
through an initiative, a ballot initiative, rather than science. And it's throwing the North American model of wildlife conservation out the window. But there's these influencers that are picking up that are anti-hunters and saying, no, you know, mountain lions are good and bobcats are good, and you know, you shouldn't be hunting them. And unfortunately, folks, about a year ago, the same thing happened to the introduction of wolves.
That's right.
So you have people on social media that don't have any knowledge. They have no knowledge. They have an agenda, but they have no scientific based knowledge of how to manage wildlife. The DNRs in all the states, that's what the biologists went to school, went to college, got a degree. So let them do their job. But a ballot person in a voter in Boulder, Fort Collins, Denver, the Front Range of Colorado, where most of the voters are, can change the face of wildlife management in Colorado. And social media is not our friend. Mr. Dan Gates is the spearhead for Colorado responsive wildlife management, and he's doing a heck of a job. But anti-hunters have a war chest that just gets bigger and bigger because of social media. So you asked me a question that was a loaded question. We hadn't talked about it, but that's where I am, because it goes against the hunting tradition. And if they win in November, they change 4 words in the next bill coming up in 2025, and it'll be elk, deer, and pronghorn antelope.
Yeah.
And that's all they have to change. That's elk, deer, pronghorn, antelope. So 4 words in the same bill, and then go out and they'll call it trophy hunting. We have to ban trophy hunting because that's not a good thing.
Yeah. It's
And it's scary, Chip. It's just flat scary for the hunting industry because we have the largest elk herd in the country. We have over the counter tags. And to lose that, I've been hunting elk since I killed my first elk in 1977. Mule deer, pronghorn, I've done it all in Colorado. And I want my grandchildren to have that opportunity.
yeah. I mean, they're seeing it. There already what has been half a dozen calves killed already by wolves this year. I think that was the number 2 weeks ago. I'm sure it's gone up.
Yes,
It's
it has. And some wolves have disappeared.
yeah,
Their beepers aren't working anymore. That means they're dead.
yeah.
And so,
I mean, it's but the point of all this is not that influencers are solely to blame. That's all.
no, let's
This
put
bad
that out there.
legislation is
Good
a whole
point.
different, is a whole other deal. But and I'm not suggesting an all-out war on influencers. What I'm suggesting is don't hang your company's hat entirely on these folks. Um, have a balanced mix, but when you do use them the right way. And it's not a one size fits all. Um, there was a study recently that showed that 2 things that marketers thought were highly effective in reality were not. And those 2 things were targeting and creativity. They thought creativity and had no effect on sales. They were wrong by almost 3 times. They thought targeting um, had the greatest effect on sales. They were wrong by almost 2 times. And you've got to be creative. Creative rules everything. If they don't Again, if they don't notice it, it doesn't matter what you do. And you've got to be broad, throw a wide net. That's how we had success at SCI. I was throwing the widest net possible. But social media, it tends to make people, first they try to target a specific audience. Second thing they do, they try to leave all the creative up to the influencer. And that's just a formula for, may not be immediate disaster, but it will stunt future growth. So there's that.
And it's always changing. So how do you stay nimble? Do you read a lot of books, or how do you stay in touch with the pulse so you know when you got to pivot, when you got to back off, when you got to pour on the gas? How do you know that?
Well, you can't, you certainly read any new research that comes out. Dave's more into the marketing research than I am. I am watching what other companies are doing and seeing what's successful. When I go into a store, I did this a lot at Crosman, even in those early years, just doing store checks. I'm standing next to somebody who's looking at air guns saying, "Hey, why are you looking at that one instead of this one?" And just ask the question, where did you hear about this thing? And when I go to these shows, I'll do the same thing. So I like talking to people. I go to all these events and I'll talk to other folks in the industry. How are they doing? How are your sales doing? And I don't need to know the number. I just need to know if it's a good or great year. And then I'll go dig around a little bit and maybe see if there's doing something differently. But right now, when I look at the vast landscape of outdoor advertising, it's all the same, Bruce. Everybody's wearing camo in a beautiful outdoor setting, and it's just blah. Nothing pops. It's boring. It's dull. All the gun ads are just dripping with freaking testosterone, and I don't need that. I mean, it's boring to me. And it doesn't stand out. It's got 18 different features on every ad, and I'm not gonna read all that. So, so David and I believe that there is a massive opportunity for Immortology to put its strengths to use here. David's kind of taking it easy the past couple of years, getting his kids through school, and uh, just dealing with these clients that he's had for a long, long time. And so now we're actively out looking for outdoor clients who are ready to outdo by never being outdone and outlast by never being outdated. So uh,
Well,
that's kind of
I'm
what
going to
we're all.
give you, I'm going to give you, and this goes out free to you, Josh Smith from Montana Knife Company. But that's one guy. If you don't know him, you ought to, because he's a genius. He's a flipping genius. And what he's done, he started at 12 years old building knives up in Frenchtown, Montana, and built an iconic brand that his marketing is genius because he only has so many knives in a run. He puts it up on Thursday night, all through social media. Hey, the run's coming up Thursday night, and he sells out in 5 minutes.
There's a watch company that does that, and it just makes me so mad. I so want one of their watches. And I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's Sangin. It's either Sangin or Sanjin,
I don't
but
know.
it's Sanjin Instruments, and their watches are beautiful. They're not super expensive, but they are limited run, and I mean they're gone in an hour. And it takes them, it's like they only launch them like every 6 months or so.
Right.
I guess I kicked myself to the back of the line even further by mentioning it. But yeah,
But
yeah, and good on Josh for doing that. I
yeah,
mean,
but he's just,
maintains that demand over time.
yeah, it's the law of scarcity. And people, I have three of his knives because I got on early. And so I was able to buy, I had the speed goats and I have three of them. And they're going to give to my kids because that good a knife.
Yeah.
They're going to go to my grandchildren. But that's a guy that I don't know how he came up with this marketing plan, but just genius. And I've told him that. I said, it's just genius. And he's
Yeah.
just expanding and making money hands over fist and turning down all sorts of offers from companies that want to buy him. The Chinese every single week. Oh, we can do this. You can make more margin. He says, no, I'm an American company. I built this company myself, and that's just what I'm going to do.
Yeah, it's tough. I get on LinkedIn on some of these groups, and these outdoor industry professionals or hunting industry, whatever. And I mean, it's like every post is some Chinese company showing, here, buy this knockoff. And it's just, I don't even get on those groups anymore because that's all, it's just full of that stuff. And I hate it, but I'm glad to hear about Josh having success. That's good to know.
Yeah, he's just kicking it. And so, if you have somebody that does sales for you guys, he'd be somebody in the outdoor industry that is proof positive doing it. And to keep, the rocket going, he's going to need, more thoughts, more products to add to the mix. Because, I once heard if you have 1,000 raving fans, you can sell anything. They'll buy anything.
That's that's exactly right. I mean, that's a good, that's a nice quote.
Yeah. And it's just, it bodes true. So we got a couple more minutes. What today, and I'm going to have you on again because this is really interesting because if people want to know what's happening in the industry, what it takes to be successful in the industry, not just shooting a deer, shooting that, there's plenty of people that talk about that, but not a lot of podcasts will have somebody like you on explaining the ins and outs of really what it takes to market successfully in the outdoor industry. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Just believe in yourself, believe in your vision. Um, at Immortology, we believe that good is never good enough and being safe is for sissies. You got to, ride that line. I rode that line hard at these companies, and every one of them saw success when they chose to believe. And, you're not going to, I mean, you're going to fail at some point, but don't get down. I mean, you hear the tired quotes, you learn from your mistakes, and that's absolutely true. But just don't let those mistakes prevent you from trying again and and being daring again. Um, I would like to mention, at Immortology, we've got one service that it's a really tough economic climate out right now, and it's going to be getting worse, in my view, anyway. And so you see a lot of companies that are looking for marketing people. And then you see some companies that wish they could get a good marketing person, but they just don't want to pay for that, that full salary for a proven marketing leader. We do have what we call a CMO to go program. It's basically like a fractional marketing program. So if you don't want to pay full salary, you just buy a couple hours, and we'll come in there and we'll lead your marketing department. We'll figure out what your needs may be. Maybe it's full blown budget and giving out tasks and directions, or maybe you just need a little strategic vision, because you want to do that before you go and try to hire someone from outside the outdoor industry to come in and tell you how to market and promote your brand. I can't tell you why that doesn't work, but I have never seen it work. I have seen people come from the hardware area, from office supplies industry into the outdoor industry, and as much success as they've had in hardware and office supplies, they can't get it right. Because when you are marketing around people's passions and hobbies and things they look forward to all year long, you better get it right. Office supplies is not something you look forward to all year long. This is completely different. So give Immortology a look. Maybe our CMO to go program is right for you. If you can't get a hold of me, I'm probably hunting, so don't worry. I'll be back in the office.
How do they get a hold of you? Let's do some of the contact stuff right now.
Yeah, go to immortologyusa.com. That is IMMORTOLOGYUSA.com. Or you can email me at chip@immortologyusa.com.
And with that, folks, Chip, this has been great catching up today. And I can't wait till our next show and get updates, what's happening, and it's just a pleasure. So on behalf of Hutch on Hunting, your host at Hutch on Hunting, this is Bruce Hutchin, and just go make it a fantastic day, folks.
Thanks, Bruce.